Today's topic is iterators in Python, and we are going to cover basically the introduction on iterator, and then we will implement our own iterator using a class. So first, let's begin with what is an iterator. I have Python idle shell open here, and I'm going to first show you how you typically use for loop to iterate through an array. Let's say I have an array of string which says, hey bro, you are awesome. Okay, now if you want to iterate through this array, you will just say this. Okay, and it works. You might have tried this before, but have you ever wondered how it works internally? This loop right here is going through these elements one by one, and that process of going through elements one by one is called iterating through a loop. Internally, it uses the built-in function called iter. So if I just say dir of a, it will show you the list of methods. Now among these, there is this iter method, which is a built-in method. So if you use that, let's see what happens. I will say I equal to, or I will say itr equal to iter a. Now what iter gives me here is a list iterator object. Now using the iterator object, you can go to a next element in this list. So if I call this next method on itr, it will print me the first element. Okay, if I call it again, by the way, in idle, if you want to repeat the old command, you can use alt p shortcut. Okay, so I'm just using alt p, and it is now at the last element. So let's see what happens if I call it one more time. Okay, so now it's raising the stop iteration exception. So this is how for loop works. Basically, it has an iterator, and each time when you iterate through it, it's internally calling next method on the itr object, and you can see the next method on itr object here. So you can see that method here. Okay, so this is a basic introduction on what iterator is. There are few other examples of iterator that you can see in this screenshot. The first one is iterating through a list. The second one is iterating through a tuple. The third one is iterating through the dictionary keys. The fourth one is basically iterating through all the characters in the string. And the fifth example is iterating through every line in a file. All of these for loops internally are using iterators. Okay, now there is also a reversed iterator available, which allows you to iterate through a list in reverse. And the way you get that is by calling this reversed method. This is a built-in method. So now on iter, if I call next, you notice that it is giving me the last element. If you call it one more time, it's gonna be last second element. So this is basically iterating in a reverse order, and this reversed method is a built-in method, which you can see here. So when you say dir a, you see reverse method, right? Always these majority of these built-in methods has underscore underscore, which you can ignore basically and just call this method directly. So now let's go ahead and implement our own iterator class. Let's say you want to design a remote control class. When you press a next button, it will give you the next channel on a TV. So in order to implement that class, we will first write a simple class called remote control. Okay, now if you have already taken my tutorial on how to define classes, then you already should have some idea on how you can define the classes. Okay, so I'm just assuming here that you already know how to write classes. So here I create a remote control class, and what I'm doing here is I'm just initializing a list of channels as a static list variable. and then I will have an indexed variable. So index variable is where, like, what channel you are on right now. So -1 is your TV is off and you don't have any channel coming in. Okay, now in order to implement iterator, you have to define this itr built-in method. Okay, and this itr built-in method will return the self object. So when you call itr on remote control class object, it will return you the same class object basically. Okay, this might be a little confusing, but you will get better understanding when we start using this. And the next thing you need to do is you need to always define your next method, because once you have iterator object, you need to have next method implemented, because that's how iterator object works. Whenever you call next on iterator object, it always gives you the next result. Okay, so for the first thing I want to do here is I want to increase the index by 1. So let's say you have a remote control, you start your TV, then your TV, you were at -1 and you want to now come to the first channel, which is SBO. So that's why I'm increasing this index. Okay, and if at any given point of time your index is equal to the length of this channel, meaning if it is end of this channel list, then you want to stop iterating. You want to then raise stop iteration. So this is a standard protocol for iterators, that whenever it reaches the end, it always raises the stop iteration. Otherwise, it returns the element in self.channels. So you are basically, what you're doing here is just returning the next available channel. Okay, now I'm going to define my remote control class now. So I'll say, okay, so first what I did is I defined my remote control class. Okay, and my iter is iter of r. So this iter is an iterator object, and then I will say print next of iter. Okay, and you can just keep on printing it as many times as you would like. Okay, so let's run this program and see what happens. So all right, let me just run it first. Okay, so here it printed HBO first, CNN, ABC, ESPN, and in the end it raised the stop iteration. Okay, let me now debug through it so that you know how this is working. So I'm going to set a breakpoint here. In order to set a breakpoint, you just click in this span here and it will set a breakpoint, and then you click on this bug icon. Bug means debug. Okay, so let's see. Cool, so you are now let me close this one. Okay, so you are at the very first line of your program. Okay, so I'm here, and now in order to go to the next line, you can use this button or you can use F10 key. So when you press this, it initializes this R object, which is a remote control class object. Now let's go inside this and see what happens. So to go inside this method, you have to use this particular button or the F11 shortcut. It's called step into. So you are going inside this function. So when you go inside this function, you notice you now came here, because ITR is same as underscore underscore ITR. So it's always gonna call this method. Okay, so let's see. Okay, now ITR here, it says it's underscore underscore main remote control object at this. So it is basically your iterator object. Now you are going to call next method, and I'm going to again step into that method using F11 control or this particular button. And when I do that, you notice it's calling this method. So when you call next, it's calling underscore underscore next, and when you call iter, it's calling underscore underscore iter. This is how Python works. Basically, it knows that it has to call this method, and you just keep on pressing this button, at this point, if you want to know what is your self index, then you can look into this variable pan, and here the index is 0. So in the list, the index starts from 0, so it's gonna return HBO here. Okay, so let me press this button one more time, and so I'm now at the next call, and if you look at console, you see that it printed HBO. Okay, if you go into that one more time, again it's coming to the same next method, and here you can see now it printed CNN. You can keep on doing that. So one more time, if you don't want to go inside and if you want to just go to the next line directly, you can use this button or F10 keyword, that's called step over. Okay, so now I am at ESPN. So now I'm going to go inside this method because it's gonna raise top iteration now because we are at the end of the list. Okay, so let's see now self.index. If you notice, what is self.index? So self.index is 4, and length of self.channels is also 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is going to go into this if condition. So now it is raising this top iteration exception. Okay, so if you look at your console now, I'm going to just yep. So now here it raised the stop iteration. Okay, so that was all about iterators. Thank you for watching.